Gentlemen, it is 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, February 22nd. We're going to call the Finance Committee meeting to session. We're at the Twinsburg Government Center. First, we're going to start with roll call. Greg Bellin is here. Mr. Post?
I am present.
And Mr. Fury?
Here.
All right. Do we have any audience participation this evening? Does not look like it. All right, next up is approval of the January 25th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Mr. Post seconds. All in favor. Mr. Bellin, aye. Mr. Post?
Aye.
Mr. Fury?
Aye.
All right, approved minutes 3-0.
I'm not sitting down.
All right, next up on our agenda is the 2022 permanent appropriation presentations. We'll start with Mr. Fulks.
And Mr. Folks does have to run out of here real quick, but if you have further questions that you think of throughout the presentation, I'll write them down and get back to you.
Thank you.
Exactly what I said.
Hi, Keith. Good to see you. Good evening. How's everybody? Good. So, yes, as you can see up on the screen, we have our last few years of our overall budget and some expenses. A couple of the key points, the 1% and 3%, which I would like to thank council for. This was a year and a half ago. You approved the allowance for us to acquire those 1%, 3% fees as part of our permit fees. So no longer is the city pulling that money back out of the money they brought in, and we're getting it straight to the state through the cost of the customer, which has saved us, as Sarah has in here, a little over $7,000, almost $8,000. We plan to upgrade some of our technology in the department with the new online permitting, as I think I mentioned a month ago. We need a little bit more facilitation in the field, so we are proposing to buy some Palm laptops. They're just a Palm pad that's a little bit more navigable through our system in real time. Because what we have now, we have to use a hotspot. Basically, we have a backpack. We're carrying several pieces of equipment out in the field. So this is going to eliminate that. As far as our staffing, I'm still thinking we need this part-time inspector, which we've tried to hire over the last 6 months, I think, but because of obviously COVID and everything else, we're having a little bit of difficulty finding that right person. So that's still on the table. We may have some changes in staffing overall coming up in the next year or two as well. That's a wait and see. I'm also anticipating buying some clothing that our staff and department can wear. It's more of a brand representation of the city. So we have a little bit more of a professional appearance out in the field, and we all look alike. I think that would be a little bit more, at least professional for us to see in the field as well. That's primarily it. I don't think that it's excessive or over the top, but if you have any questions. Yes.
Yes, how many part-time inspectors do you have and how many full-time?
We have no part-time inspectors. We have 2 full-time inspectors.
And that's Jason?
Jason Pistorius and Dan Chiselka.
Oh, okay.
Up until a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, we had 2 full-time inspectors, a part-time inspector. We also had a part-time administrative person. Mm-hmm. So, backfilling some of those is a possibility because we do still have a considerable amount of paperwork and time. I think, as I mentioned, I don't have the number in front of me, but we were just over $1 million in permits that we brought in. So typically, the state of Ohio evaluates your overall income and your budget, and they try to make sure that that's a balance, because if you're bringing in a tremendous amount of money and you don't have staff to support that, they question it typically. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
We don't charge for rental properties, is that correct? Or we do? Rental properties?
I'm sorry, what do you mean charge for
fees? For fees. I know you said for, I think you guys have talked about this before, probably before I got on.
Talking about inspections for rental properties?
Yeah, inspection for
sales?
rental properties. Do you charge for that?
No, we charge for a point of sale inspection. For actual property maintenance, we do that as part of our regular operations. But we don't do a point of sale for like a roomer or a rental. We don't have a licensing where if you have a rental property that you register it with us annually. We do have for like vacant properties, they're supposed to be registered, whoever has that. But beyond that, there's no regular registration or licensing for rental properties.
Does anyone know what % of houses in the city are rentals? Ballpark, anyone?
I have no idea.
We could try to find that out.
Maybe Larry, maybe.
Do you know what % of houses are rentals, Larry? Roughly, ballparkish?
There are about 80% of our houses are single-family residential. So about 20% are rental. There also are 1,000 single-family residential units estimated to be rented, not included as multifamily buildings.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if that includes Airbnbs or things like that. I don't know.
We don't keep track of Airbnb.
I was just, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Oh, real quick, while I've got you here, is there any update on, or what is the update on the Tulum?
There's activity.
Okay.
They're working. They've been there. In fact, today there were 2 vans. They're working. I'm going to probably follow up again this week
Okay.
as I'm back. But I'm still holding them to the 45 days.
Okay, which is when? When does that expire?
That was, I believe I was there on the, let me see.
It's either this or next month. It's got to be.
Right, was that the, I think it was there on the 10th. The 7th
Okay.
of February I was there. So 45 days, I think, puts it,
Middle of March, something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Actually, they're 90 days.
Okay.
45 days was the burgers to beer.
Okay.
So their 90 days would put them at May.
Okay. All right.
So-
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Here.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, we have Economic Development and Planning. Mr. Finch.
Good evening. There have been a lot of changes, obviously, in the budget over the last several years. We're a little bit higher this year, primarily because there will be a staffing change this year. There are a couple of other things that have impacted our budget slightly. We are paying a share of MyGov, the software that we use in building and planning. We started paying a share of that last year, so you'll see that reflected in this year's budget as well. We are still operating a relatively reduced budget with no travel, no expenses, significant expenses for professional services. The professional services did include a slight increase because the software we use for real estate monitoring is going up slightly. So those are pretty much the impacts to the budget in terms of the department, planning and community development. Planning is relatively flat if we're looking at planning by itself. They will have fewer meetings this year because the activity is slowing down. We don't have subdivisions occurring now. However, we hope to have central area redevelopment activity coming up before year's end, although that could be hit and miss in terms of, it's going to be a while before it imposes much burden on the planning commission or on the building department. As far as other things go, we have a couple of payouts for economic development related to compensating top program participants. We're going to lose 2 off that list this year, but we're picking 1 up. So we're going to have a slight reduction in the top program. In the CRA payouts to the school district, we are going to be losing 2 off that list this year. So the payouts this year will be slightly less than it was last year. And then next year, we'll have another 2 coming off. It'll make it a little bit less for the following year. So not a lot of change in either direction. And that's pretty much the summation of it.
Comments, questions?
Explain to me.
Yeah. Okay. I notice here, or you have it listed here, that presentations will be held for the public in 2022 for the comprehensive plan. Is that scheduled at this point?
Yeah, actually, it's coming to you, to council at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
And finally, this evening, we have engineering and infrastructure with Ms. Moore.
Main focus of mine is the infrastructure, because we do have some changes in moving money around associated with inflationary costs. So we sat down and went through, Dorridge, as you know, has moved off, but some of that money from SCMR will be used to help supplement some of the other projects going out there. So the road program, I think here we had listed as, it's actually on the next page, but that's okay. We had it listed as, I think, about
There you go.
1.3 million. We're good. 135, and we came in at 1346, I think is what. So we're really close on those numbers. Actually, you may have updated it after we came in, because I think we had it lower originally. White Oak and Birchwood will be coming in tonight, and again, we came in pretty good based on our new numbers, estimating on there. Our striping program we bid, I sent you an email, we came in a lot higher, 60% higher than last year. I mean, it was just a huge number. So what we're looking at is we sent that back out as a long line only, which is your center line and your edge lines, and we estimating that at about 65,000. So we'll actually come in under what we have up at there in the SCMR project. Trees, we have a small amount of money in trees. We're looking at doing some of that in-house with the service department as far as some plantings, and then some we may just contract out, but it would be very small. We've covered most of the subdivision work, so I think my list has maybe a dozen or 2 trees at most on it right now, other than what we're working with the service department. They're going to go ahead and replace some trees in Whispering Woods that are causing some issues with the snowplow equipment. We do have money in there for the sidewalk program, which was bid with the road program. We spent all that money. We have a placeholder in there for some stormwater water quality improvements at Liberty Park. We're still working on the design on that. And Ravenna Road bids on Thursday, so we'll know how well we hit that pricing based on. I think we figured it out a little bit better. You know, I've only missed twice this year, so I hope my batting average is better than 500.
That opens Thursday?
Yeah, that opens Thursday. And then we also have out to bid at the end of the month is the Cannon Road storm sewer. And we think that bid came in 2020. We didn't award it, and they were way out there, but we have called suppliers as far as manufacturers to get pricing, so hopefully we're pretty good on that number too.
Questions? Amy, for the sidewalk program, how are those identified, the locations?
We asked for a list from service departments.
Okay.
As far as what they would consider they would repair.
Okay.
A lot of it has to do with utility, or they can't slab jack it.
So it is not a resident saying, please repair my sidewalk?
It could be, you know, if the service department did get a call and they had that road on their, they could have put that road on their list to go look at because they had concerns or complaints. But we do recommend that, you know, if you have any issues, service does do the slab jacking program, and they will try that, or they'll evaluate. And then if it is a broken sidewalk due to a manhole cover or something like that, report it to the service department. It will go on a list.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
And then the only other thing that I don't see on here, are we still moving forward with the railroad crossing replacements at Glenwood and?
Yeah, it's actually in the road program.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that will be, they'll be either June or July. We have to do the coordination effort again on that, so.
Okay.
Those will be done, along with, we bid with the road program, the parking lot at the fitness center.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed
Can we
it.
get any temporary repair on that one though, on Glenwood? Yeah, it's
It's bad.
I
real
mean,
bad.
we've had some pops at different locations. Now, I haven't specifically had service say something, they were talking about a different road. So they are looking at what's popping over the winter. We did well until the last 3 weeks where we've had a lot of this freeze thaw stuff and the roads are starting to.
Yeah, but you go right over the
pop.
rail and there's a gap there.
Northbound, especially. Or I'm sorry, the
Oh, at the track.
at the track.
At the tracks
Westbound,
itself.
actually. Eastbound.
We did,
Eastbound.
I did
Yeah.
notify, here's the problem is, we're not allowed to go 15 feet to the
I
track.
get it, so maybe we need. to
So
go
I
road.
did notify, I think when earlier that came up, and it might be getting worse, I did
Yeah.
notify the railroad, and I can notify them again.
I believe
That's a
Service
concern.
notified the railroad also, because
Yeah.
I can't remember, someone texted me about it, and I actually took pictures, and it's like a gap where there's like a wooden piece.
That's a huge
that,
gap.
I mean, and that's always been our issue, is that, yeah, we have that 15 feet restriction, so, and I don't know what we would do on top of that wood. I don't know that you can just pack cold patch on top
gonna
of
stay.
that wood, so, but I believe Service is notified, and Amy says she's also too, so.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, is there already a rough schedule about when these roads are gonna get fixed? Only because I had a couple people asking, oh, when's this getting done? I said, I don't know when anything's actually getting done. Is there like a rough timeline, or is it?
We'll start on concrete repairs on the road program, which is some of the sidewalks and the curbs associated with it. We typically don't start to peel off the asphalt until May, but the concrete work we start in April.
Gotcha.
So I have not met yet for a pre-construction meeting, so I do not have the contractor schedule, and even then, the schedule. But once I get a better idea of how he wants to proceed through, I'll post it a little bit more in detail
Gotcha.
with some flex on the construction webpage. I do have it up there, but we haven't told them they have to do them in any specific order. It's more or less.
Gotcha.
The Ravenna Road, out to bid right now. By the time we're under contract, again, that's a summer type of project. There is going to be a detour in the city. Again, if you go to our construction web page, the township, the Summit County engineer, is doing some work, and they'll have a detour that will use Old Mill Road 91. It's affecting Ravenna Road, actually, in the township limits for some culvert stuff. So I did try and post everything, but yeah, I don't have any firm dates until I have pre-construction meetings.
Gotcha. I just didn't know. I'm new.
Yeah.
And the only other question I have was about Ethan's Drive, because that's getting resurfaced. Is that a specific part of it or most of it?
Yeah, that's from 91 to Mathers Way area.
Okay.
And honestly, I can't.
Because that's
tell you
right
which
where
side
I'm at, and it
Mathers
is
Way
like going through it's pretty bad.
Yeah, if it's bad, it's probably in the limits of where it, because I think there's actually a line that kind of shows a phase line.
Oh, yeah, you can see it.
Where it was
Oh, you can see
resurfaced.
right
So
there.
we're going to that phase
But
line.
my question is, wasn't that done at some point, that part of Ethan's, in
It was
some
done.
point recently? In the last
They may have done a
5
patch in a small area.
I thought they did in Ethan's, I thought in the last 5 years we've done.
Well, we've done the other section within the last 5
But
years.
I thought they did closer between Mathers and 91 also. I thought they did. I could be totally wrong. And I remember at that point, I thought you said that the problem is that the problem wasn't the top, it's the foundation is bad in certain areas.
And they did do a patch in some area, and we'll review it before, when they actually peel off the surface to see what is more than, the 3 inches that we go down. We'll go and do base repairs where it's still showing the deterioration is coming from base up.
Oh,
So we have quantity in there to do more than just a resurfacing, but we're not reconstructing the entire road. It will be based on what
Just here.
unravels when we actually take off the surface and see what's going on.
Gotcha, okay. And those bricks at that crosswalk, I think, settled again.
Well, if it's within our limits, when we do the way we do our resurfacing, if not, I'll send it to service. If it's within our resurfacing limits, that's when we always address ADA ramps. because we don't go all the way around the city or a report, so.
No, I mean the crosswalk at the roundabout again.
Yeah.
Remember we had those bricks fixed?
on,
Remember those bricks? Remember I said every time you drive in, you just sink in?
yeah.
And they fixed it. I think the company came back out and fixed it. But I don't know. I feel like it's just, again, it's like it was smooth. And I feel
Okay,
like
we'll take a look. We'll see
I
what's
feel like
going
every
on.
time
There's a nice speed bump going into.
You're only supposed to be going 25 miles an hour,
Listen, I'm
David.
coming off that roundabout, you know. Am I being recorded? I come off that roundabout at 15 miles an hour.
And just so new council understands, I'll just wait till he's done. I'm saying this for him. So
What was that?
I was going to say, for you and Karen to understand, we have 2 sidewalk programs. So one is kind of internal. We have slabjacking equipment that we purchased back in 2015 where we'll go drill holes level, and then we budget each year for 50 to usually 100,000, where we go out with usually tree roots, sanitary lines that have caused more serious collapses, and then we'll cut those sections out, and we get a third-party contractor to come do that. So when you see budget numbers, that's typically for that second, sidewalk program. And the first one I know we didn't do in 2020 because of COVID. Right. I can't remember if we did much of it last year at all, but hopefully this year we'll have the staffing and everything up so we can at least send a couple guys to continue to work throughout the city.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Anybody else? Scott?
Just one quick question. Thank you for sending out that email about the striping program. So just from a curiosity standpoint, do you feel that the increase in the striping program is just temporary as a result of what everybody's feeling with this post-COVID, or, I mean, just from a budget planning
Yeah,
standpoint,
you know, I don't want to be
your point, it
quoted
was
as saying
60
inflation is temporary. I think inflation is here to stay, at least in the construction industry, for a couple of years. Now, in 2009, when we had the big issues and things, prices went up way high with asphalt and everything else, and they did come back down. To some degree associated with, they've got to stay competitive with concrete.
Sure.
But right now, you're dealing with the trucking, so you're dealing with diesel costs, labor costs, and labor, they're going up everywhere because, as you bring minimum wage up, people that are doing the hard labor are saying, unions are saying, well,
Sure.
We want more, we can go work someplace else. So I think you do have wage increases, I think, until the fuel stabilizes, and we could bid our jobs, ODOT bids their jobs where they put everything on, you're bidding it today and here's the price of fuel, here's the price of asphalt. We don't have a budget like ODOT does where they have millions of dollars and they have jobs bidding all the time and flexing. So we lock our contractors in and say, you're bidding it and this is the price you're bidding. We eliminate that from ODOT spec, which we basically follow, because those could, in some years could go up, and some years it could go down, but I've kind of watched it, and a year like this year, I think there's a lot of fuel costs built in and things like that, and delays due to not getting materials.
Right, yeah, I know.
Everything's
Seem to be
taking-
feeling that in general in the construction trades. I just didn't know if
Right.
there was some specific.
Yeah, they may have personnel out there and they've got to reset them to do something else because they're,
Just
so
for
it
budget.
changes their schedule and how fast they can complete a job, so that means they've got more manpower associated with it.
Perfect.
So, but I would think a couple years before we see.
See some easing on that. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anybody else? Thank you, Amy. All right, next up is the 2022 Permanent Appropriations Overview. Ms. Boucherbass.
Yes, so tonight on first reading, we have the permanent appropriations. If you remember, I think it was last fall, we kind of went through our procedures on how we do the budget process. We've been doing a temporary budget the past few years. One, because we just like to see where those numbers close out to have the best idea of what the next year needs to look like, but also because of COVID. Things are just so up in the air that it helps us to have that extra time in that first quarter of the following year to see where we're at so that we can be as close as we can on a budget. I mean, a budget is a moving target throughout the year. We have to make changes, but this gives us time to try to get as close as we can. So any questions about how we got to the permanent budget phase?
Comments, questions? So we're going to read it 3 times, but it is on emergency?
It'll be on emergency on March 22nd.
Okay.
Because we have to pass it on emergency so that we can spend money on April 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does everybody
And we have to have it in
understand-
place.
For the new people, do you guys understand what the difference between emergency and non-emergency is for ordinances and resolutions?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how you make that determination except if it
So
needs to be done right away.
But if you don't put it on an ordinance on an emergency, it's 30 days before you can do anything. Put it on an emergency, it's act the next day. So when you got a budget that's has to be in at the county before the end of the month, it just makes sense to do it that way. Resolutions are 10 days. So if we have a resolution that's on an emergency, it's the next day. If not, it's 10 days. So somebody can contest it, or the mayor might not sign it if he doesn't agree with what we passed. Hasn't been the issue for many years, but there have been a couple vetoes 15, 16 years ago.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? No? Awesome.
Okay, so some of the changes that we made to the temporary budget, well, all of them are listed out. If you look on your legislation packet, the first couple pages of your permanent budget list out, not the green presentation, but actually on your legislation, like in your box, act that changes
Okay.
in the ordinance. You'll see those sheets that have everything listed out on the changes that we made to the expenses and the changes that we made to the revenues. On the expense side, we reduced the budget by almost $1 million. Now, a big piece of that is that Dorridge project delay. So that offset a lot of the increases that we had to make in other places. The smaller departments, we usually don't have them come up and talk, so I just wanted to point out we did have a couple additions to those administrative budgets. You can see on the presentation there in council and law, we updated some line items to make sure we had some training options available in both of those departments, and also some operating supply changes for some memberships that they wanted to belong to. On the IT side, we're going to try to do some more cybersecurity items. We're looking at multi-factor authentication. So we put that money in there. And then we also had talked last year about the access control system, which you might have seen that the new badge swipers are in now. So it's happening. That project is, I think, almost done in City Hall. And then I do want to point out the police server redundancy. That was approved in the capital budget for 2021. They didn't get to the project, so we put it back in for 2022. We should have rolled it over, but we just didn't realize that we hadn't gotten to it yet until we started talking through the permanent budget changes. And then on the reduction side of the expenses, another item that we were able to reduce was the subsidies. So we were able to reduce subsidies to some of our entertainment enterprise funds, and then also to SCMR and capital improvement because of the changes, again, mostly on that Dorridge project. On the revenue side, the main updates are just matching up to what the county is reporting to us for what our property tax collections are going to look like. It went up really just a little bit, but still that's better than going the other way. And then we also updated those, the other side of those subsidies. So you'll see some reductions on the revenue side, but that's just because it has the offsetting expense being reduced from the general fund. There we go. And then we had a couple grants that are gonna come in. We've got almost $100,000 federal grant that the fire department was awarded, and they'll talk a little bit about that next month. I think they got a power cot and a couple other things. It's a really nice grant that they're going to able to, I think they're going to use it to outfit one, if not two of those 2 med units with the power cot. So that'll be nice. So any questions on that listing of the changes that we've made? We'll go through specifically the changes for service, wastewater, police, and fire next month at their presentations. But if there are any other questions that you have, we can go through those.
Comments, questions? No?
Okay, so then just a couple statistics for you there. The general fund appropriations, we actually were able to reduce a little over 4% from the 2021 appropriations. a big piece of that is that police and fire levy. Now that we have support for police and fire pensions and police and fire capital, we don't have to pull money out of the general fund to pay for those things. So it's just really easy to see that property tax, how it helps us balance things out. So that's a great thing. And then we do not have a draw on general fund, meaning the general fund is balanced. So still good with that. That was the same from the temporary budget. I think we made it a little bit better with the permanent budget. So we're still doing good with the general fund. The thing we're gonna have to keep an eye on is the same thing we've been talking about the whole time, which is the income tax.
Mr. Jerry?
Can you remind me what we expect to collect off of the the new property tax? Because we haven't seen that yet.
We have not seen that yet.
We're going to collect that at the end of this half?
It starts coming in February because if,
Oh, so you
in
get
the fall,
partials?
we do that advanced legislation every year so that we get some of the money up
Okay.
front throughout the year.
Because I paid my taxes this year for last year.
Yeah, we already got an advance this month.
When did the millage take effect? Was it 1/1/22 or was it earlier than that?
Technically, it's 1/1/21 because you're paying your 2021 tax bill in 2022. It's like in arrears.
Okay.
So we're getting the money now, but if you look at your tax bill, it says 2021.
So we're already paying the tax. Our taxes aren't going up again.
No,
unless
you
more
paid
millage is
it
passed
with
by the
that first bill
schools.
you got this year, it's on there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've
I
already got some.
misunderstood that. I didn't think we were, I
Yeah.
didn't think we had seen it yet, so thank you.
And altogether, I think it's around 1.7.
I thought it was 1.7 before. I didn't know if the number changed with the
Yeah.
new.
They went up a little bit, but it was like a couple $1,000s here and there.
Just did the reappraisals about, what, in the last 6 months or so? So that's, I just curious. 1.7 is
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
I think the big reappraisal hit before we got that first $1.7 million estimate, when everybody's went way up during the pandemic. I think that was last spring when those big increases hit.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the permanent appropriations? Okay. Next up on the agenda then is the 5-year capital listing.
Yeah, so I gave us a little extra time tonight to talk about capital just in general because we got a couple questions. You know, when council is decision making, it's hard to make decisions about today when you don't know what's going to hit you tomorrow. Totally understandable. So I just wanted to, maybe a little too much time, I gave us a little extra time tonight to talk through that. So every year when we have the departments fill out their budget requests, we also have them do at least a 5-year capital plan. Now, there are some departments like Amy, who I've asked to stick around because a lot of the infrastructure money is, well, it's, you can see there, it's almost half of our 5-year capital plan. But Amy has things planned out to the 40s, you know, and then it sounds
Well,
weird to
she
say, but
should.
it's, you know, she has these things ready to go. And she has to do that because that's how she aligns her funding, right? So one of the things that we have been doing lately is we've been meeting, me, Amy, the mayor, the law director, the public works director, and then we pull in different department heads as needed to talk about the bigger picture items that maybe we don't really have slated into our 5-year plan, or it's multiple departments are involved, and try to figure out how we're gonna go after that money. So an example would be our traffic signal system. We know that we need to do something. We know that it's going to be a very expensive project. At some point, we have to get ourselves together, make some decisions to apply for funding, because I think it's like a 90-10, is that right, if we get awarded?
Yeah, they probably look at 80/20, depending on what the program is.
80-20, okay.
80/20 is your typical funding program, but you're applying, and that money doesn't come in for 5 years. So you really have to start thinking about things so that you're not in that bind. We are running a very old technology that isn't really supported by the industry anymore. We talk about computers, but our technology is, I think we updated it about 15 years ago. So for computer technology, that's old. And then we've got the everything, the salt and everything else is getting old that's out there, all the wiring, everything associated with its signals. So it would be a big project.
But so that's just one example, and that's a 7-figure project. So we keep talking about it so that we can figure out where to put it, but that's something that you're not going to see in that 5-year capital plan. So we've got $30 million set aside. The other thing is, if we go ahead and grab that packet that you have there, that I have it listed out for you, you can see after you get past 2022, there's going to be a lot of items that say to be determined. So those dollar amounts are not in there, but they're most likely the bigger ticket items. So like in 2023, you'll see the items that are highlighted. We've got the aerial trucks coming up. Now, once we get into 2023, we can put a placeholder number in there, but the way that the vehicles and the equipment is coming back right now, we know we need to do it, we've got it on there, but by the time we get into next year, that quote, I'm not sure if we had a number in there today, it would really truly be valuable to have it in there, because it might be twice that, we don't know. So same thing with, if you look under the fire department, we've been talking a lot about Station 1 improvements and that parking lot over there, like in between police and fire. We just don't know yet what we want to do. So we've got this placeholder in there that we know we need to do something, but we're gonna have to decide what it is that we want out of it and then figure out how much that's gonna cost us. So on the fitness side of things, we've been talking about that roof and the pool packs for a long time now. We saw last month when Jen came and talked to us, we did put, I think it was $22,000 into her budget to be able to start the process to get a real number for that roof and the pool pack. I do expect it's probably still gonna come back 7 figures, but at that point, we have to figure out how we wanna pay for it. So on the next page there in 2024, we talked about the amphitheater construction this year. That's another to be determined item, because if you remember when she talked last month, she's kind of going to go through a redesign of what we want to do out there. And we're having some ADA compliance looked into this year. No, not ADA, EPA. EPA compliance looked into this year for the amphitheater. And then if we look into 2025, and once you get a couple years out here, this is really when things become a sliding scale. We have it on the list. We know it's going to come up here sooner rather than later, but these things kind of ebb and flow. They might be a year earlier or a year later, depending on what the quality of the item looks like. So we have the aerial truck on there. Again, most likely those trucks are going to be lease payments, just like we did with the pumper truck. So to have a number in there is just not feasible yet. We've got the amphitheater there again for like which phase we're gonna be in. The big one in 2025 is that service garage. And that's why I made note that once we get a couple years out, I don't know where we're gonna be with the service garage. That might be a project that is really large. It might be farther out. We are gonna have a lot of discussions way before it gets to finance committee, but that's one of those items that $30 million number is not reflective of what that might cost. And that's gonna be probably one of our bigger projects in the city, maybe. And then in 2026, again, there's not as many to be determined items, because once you get that far out, again, it's that moving target of when are we going to replace these things. We have what we would like to do, especially on the equipment on the service side. I mean, they have their stuff planned out 20 years, just like Amy does. It's just a matter of maybe the trucks are holding up better, maybe we've had some rough winters. and things are rusted out, we have to see when we get there. So I just wanted to, like I said, I left a little too much time, but I left some time to see what council's questions were as far as capital goes, and, you know, what you're interested in hearing about, or if there's projects specifically that you have questions about, we can go through that.
So could you explain to me again, you're talking about the $30 million. Are you talking about this $31 million that's on this page here for the grand total for the 5 years?
Right, I'm saying that that's a very deceiving number because
Right.
you have a lot of big ticket
It's not in
items
there.
that are
Right.
not,
Okay.
there's no number
Okay.
attached.
So that it's not as if there's a $31 million like just bank account floating around somewhere that it's just waiting to be spent.
No,
Okay, no, right, okay.
that would be lovely,
Well, it would be.
but no, we don't have one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my mind, I know we've been talking for years at this point about pool packs and roofs, and you mentioned it. You know, I know there's a discussion to be had there. I know we've made some significant changes just to kind of operations of the fitness center and those kind of things. I think there's certainly discussion warranted there. And I don't know, we've been talking about service garage my entire time on council.
I was gonna say, I think Sam brought it up 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's needed. I don't know. Can we wait another 5 years? I don't even, you know.
Well, I believe Chris has got his budget this year to kind of look at a study that just says, what do they need from a square footage, from, you know, I know he wanted to kind of pursue at least finding that out. Not necessarily how it would be configured, but how many square foot they would need, what kind of garage doors, what type of office space, what type of, you know, all that kind of stuff. Then trying to figure out where are we going to put it. If we're going to put it in the same spot that it's at, or are there going to be other options around the city?
And then obviously I don't know how the school's plans play into that as well. I know we had talked about.
Yeah, I think they could. I mean, kind of the conversation I had at the last meeting was, you know, there's potentially an opportunity to relocate the service garage. It just really depends on the schools and their timing and, you know, how that's going to play out. I mean, you know, this is going to be a big ticket item. You know, probably one of the bigger projects we're going to tackle in a long time. So just depends on how we approach it too. You know, are we going to bond it out? Or are we going to, you know, are we going to pay for it out of current income tax operations? Or are we going to look for any kind of additional levies or any of that kind of stuff? I mean, it's, you know, we've got some big facility issues that are coming up, you know, between the fitness center and the service garage. And, you know, in the distance, there's also the Fire Station 1 that needs work. I mean, there's a lot of big capital projects, you know, where the school's going to go out for a levy for capital projects. I mean, those are things that,
I guess my concern is, I know Sam and Bill, but my concern is like that stuff takes time too, right? It's like we've got on here this, you know, for 2023, a ladder truck. I mean, could we even get a ladder truck in 2023 if we ordered it today? I bet we could. I don't know.
It takes a year just
Right.
to.
Probably can't, I'm telling you
Right,
right
yeah.
now.
It takes a year to put the order
Just to
together.
spec it, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, Sam, you had something?
I just, and he mentioned it, I was just, you know, we're talking about service garage, but there's some upgrades needed in Station 1.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, and we've got to fit that into this equation too somewhere. Because they've waited a long time as well. And you've actually got people living there and working out of that facility. So, you know, I think that's important too.
yeah.
Do
Yeah,
we
and
have
they-
any sort of scope for that at this point?
We have it listed in 2023. That was one of those to be determined items because
Yeah.
we just don't know what we're looking at yet. They did a study. It was before I got here, so
like
it's at least 4 or
2016,
5
right.
years old. And I think that the study at that time might need to be redone, it sounds like. So we need to go back and really look at it and see what we need to do. I know that Chief Morgan has been in contact with Chief Mason and with Chris Campbell to try to figure out, you know, because all these buildings together, what are we going to do to move forward? Because they're all sort of aging out at the same
Right.
time.
Which is a bummer, but Bill, did you have something?
I did. Can you just remind me where we are with long-term debt in the city today? I thought we were fairly low, other than the golf course, which we have set up for 20 years,
Right.
450 rough a year.
You're correct. In comparison to our debt capacity, we are very low, and that information is all publicly available. It's out there. We have to report it every year. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but our clubhouse debt is really our main piece of debt. The land, essentially, the golf course
900
land, and it was
acres.
senior center, and there was some other things roped into that debt we paid off last year. This year, we pay off that Darrow Road bond. And so really, it's the clubhouse bond, and then we've got our OPWC loans,
For
which
loans
it's,
for the water lines and.
yeah, and it's, I mean, it's a decent payment, but it's also interest-free. You're
interest-free.
using someone else's money for free for the next,
Can you tell us how much we have left? Because we were typically $1 million per road, but that's been going on for 10 or 12 years. So
for
we-
OPWC.
Yes.
I want to say it's between 7 and 8 million, but I hate to put out a
It's
hard
still
number.
Oh, how
7 or 8
much,
million?
how much is on the loans, or how much?
How
we
much
still-
is left on the interest-free
Outstanding.
loans for the water
Oh,
lines?
yeah, you-
Yeah, I can run it for you. I can
I'm
get
just
you the
curious, 'cause
listing,
I-
but it's, I mean, it's a significant amount of money, but a significant amount of work was done, and our payment is low because there's no interest attached to it.
Yeah, and just correct me if I'm wrong, from a payment standpoint, we were in the 600,000 from a debt service. Last year, we went up to like $1 million because we added the clubhouse in anticipation of other debt falling off. So by 2023, we're going to go from like 600 to $1 million, but back down to like 4. Whatever the
450.
clubhouse debt is, yeah.
That's the bond, yeah, plus the
Yeah.
OPWC loan.
Yeah, plus the OPWC, but from a bonded debt, that's kind of how the debt service flows.
20 years ago, the community center and the senior center were bonded out. There were things bonded a long time ago when there were less people and more money. So I would use that as a vehicle. In my opinion, I think we should use that as a vehicle to drive some of these major programs. Or at least investigate them thoroughly.
Yeah, I think I would really like to have a better understanding of what some of these things are gonna cost, again, ballpark, right? Things like, the service garage, things like upgrades to Fire Station 1. I think in my mind, those are the top two that I think we need to
Yeah.
address probably sooner rather than later. I know we just got a truck. I don't know if this needs to be another ladder truck, if we can, again, I don't
Both of
know.
those ladder trucks were purchased at the same time. They're both going to age out
Right.
roughly at the same time.
That's the tough part about the two ladder trucks
Right.
is, they were bought together.
Do we
and-
need two? I don't know.
Well, I think that was a conversation that we've started to have with fire of whether we need two
Right.
ladder trucks or not, so.
Versus a pumper, is that the other?
Like a
Pumper's
ladder
what
or
we-
a telesquirt or something else.
Okay.
Yeah,
Closer
there's,
look at it.
yeah, the pumper's what we just purchased. But the ladder trucks, again, were bought for some reason at the exact same time,
Right.
two of them.
Okay.
But yeah, I think, estimates of service garages are probably in that $6 to $8 million range,
Okay.
depending on what you do. I mean,
It's gotta be higher than that. Mine is
I mean-
6 over there, and mine's,
yeah, I mean,
so it's gotta be way above 6,
Yeah.
I would think,
Um,
8 and above.
yeah, I know when they looked at Fire Station 1, that was, a potential redo back in 5-6 years ago was an $8 million project.
Is that a rebuild?
I know
or-
Streetsboro just built a brand new fire station for, they stayed around 5.5, I think, so
Okay.
it's a pretty amazing facility.
Fire station?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
We built ours for 2.4.
Station 2?
Station
Yes.
2. Yeah.
Paid cash for it, but that would be 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah. But there's some big projects, but this is definitely something that is gonna get bonded out. You're gonna have to bond it out.
Thanks.
It's just depending on, what we do to service that debt.
Right.
10,000 square feet.
So it's, if I'm understanding correctly, we're gonna have a better understanding of the pool and the roof this year?
The pool and the roof, we should have a better understanding
Okay.
of this year because we have the money in there. The design firm or architecture firm was selected, so that is in progress happening. I think the service garage side of things, I'm not sure that they're to the point of having a design or architecture firm just yet. I think we're still in talks about that, but they're gonna start talking about that at Public Works in April because
Okay.
there's a lot of steps that they have to go through before they get to the money part. Like we've been talking about location and what the square footage of what they want is gonna look like before we can kind of get numbers attached to it. The Station 1 side of things, I think is gonna be really dependent on what exactly it is that they want out of that station. The lot, we could probably get numbers on the lot, but some of that was dependent upon if the landscape of the fire station changes, then the lot pricing would change as well. But is there anything else on that 5-year capital plan, with the understanding that there are some big ticket items that aren't on there or aren't priced yet? Do you have any questions about that?
Yeah,
I
so.
hope I didn't just make it more confusing.
No, I don't think you did at all. I think you made it pretty clear. I'm just trying to, again, just trying to learn. I'm very young in this. And I won't say that forever. Just a few more times.
Yeah, I think you're done with that.
Just a few more times. So it looks like every year, like the capital requests are between like 5 and 7 on average, right? That's what it looks like for the next 5 years. It's 5.4, 6.9, 7.7, 5.5, 5.3.
Without
So
those TBDs.
without the anomalies,
Yeah.
without the right. And I'm guessing that's been back a few years, and it probably will continue in 27, 28, 29 in that range without the anomalies, right? And we have enough money every year that this isn't. The 5 to 7 million is really not a problem, we should say, for lack of a better way to say it. Like, are the money coming in? Now, we don't know what's going to be coming in because our numbers are going to be going down every year as well, right?
Right.
Potentially from the income tax.
Yeah,
So,
so that's one of the things that it gets a little bit tougher to plan for, with the dependency that we have on the income tax. Right now, we're able to cover it, right, especially this year, that police and fire levy, that's how we're covering all the things that we're doing in capital this year. Otherwise, we would be putting that $650,000, $678 or whatever it ended up being for police and fire capital. That would just be straight out of the general fund, and our general fund would not be balanced. We would be
Under.
just shy of $700,000
Right.
short. Now, I know the income taxes, we're very reserved on that number, but last year we just about hit the number that was our reserve number. We just had some other things come in that helped us out and some expenses we were able to save. So
our
to
numbers
say that
could
it's
keep coming down like this. It could. We don't. Again, there's just a ton of unknown going around.
Yeah.
Is the problem, and it's nobody's fault. It's just.
right. I
It's
know
what it
that
is.
we just had
don't know.
a company leave to go to where did they go to? Bedford, maybe? A smaller company, but, well, Larry left, but he would have known. But it was, there was a news article about that, and that didn't have anything to do with COVID. So some of that kind of stuff just happens too, just the normal in and out of businesses. So maybe we have a big one come in that covers some of those holes, and that would be great.
Right.
But as far as like the 5 to 7 million and can we cover it every year, it's just so difficult to say because some years we have been able to cover it and some years we were dipping way down deep into the general fund to cover what we were doing with capital and infrastructure. Now, at the time, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing because we had huge balances in the general fund, and you don't necessarily want to build up money forever. You want to put that money back into your city. Right now, we're just in our kind of evening out phase where we're trying to make the general fund healthy, and I do think we're at a good place.
But with today's numbers, we would be okay with this 5 to 7. With today, just looking at today.
Just looking at today, yeah.
So
We're looking okay for this year if income tax holds.
Right. I guess the question becomes, I agree with, what is the dollar amount of all of those TBDs ballparked over the next 6 years? I guess that's the question, right? Total,
So-
like just a column right here, like of all the TBDs across the
Yeah.
bottom, like this year we expect the TBD to be 3.8.
Yeah.
2026, we expect 4 years, 5 years to do a maintenance building.
So-
8 million, you know?
Some
like-
of those are easier than others. You know, you could put an $8 million number in there for that service garage. It might be 10 or 12.
Right, I understand.
You know, and
But at least
so,
you're visually something to
Right.
at least.
and then if you do look at a debt route, then it's really what that payment looks like as opposed to just having a $10 million number sitting there. It's probably more 500,000, 550. The aerial trucks, something like that is a little bit easier to ballpark. The pumper truck ended up being, I think it was like 1.2-ish. So I'd put a ladder truck more expensive than that. So I'd say like probably 1.5 at this point.
And how many years are we paying for that truck?
We did 10.
10 years? Okay. With a life expectancy of 20?
25.
Yeah.
Plus recert 25.
Yeah, I think it was, the pumper was less than that, actually. It didn't get up over $1 million. I'm thinking of the
was
old price for the aerial
850,000.
truck. The old price for the aerial truck was
The
1.2.
current one, the brand new one?
It was 850,000.
Yeah,
And if
And
we
David-
paid 60 or 70 more to be able to finance it, we could have got it for less if we'd have paid it outright.
but we started paying up front. We were like 2 payments in, I think, before the truck got delivered.
And usually what you'll see year, I mean, operations are operations because like most of it is staffing. So unless we want to start laying off people and really minimizing the services we provide, really where we squeeze is the capital budget, you know. So if we're trying to balance a budget, operations are operations. Unless we really want to start minimizing services, laying off people, that's the number that we start putting projects off or really, you know, looking at things that we could put off right to another year. We're not going to get rid of them, we're just delaying them. So that's the issue you run
So you
into.
can't
You can only delay so long,
Right.
then you gotta do stuff.
Right.
It's like the roof and the pool pack. Yeah, we've been talking about that forever, you know, but, you know,
That day's knocking, right?
it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's getting here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, there's 4 or 5 things on here that I don't think we can really push out a whole lot longer. The pool pack is one of them. The service garage is another one that I think we have to start really seriously considering.
Ladder trucks.
The ladder trucks, and then, I mean, the amphitheater, it could be, I mean, depending on what we do there, that could be a significant, you know, and I know we're gonna get something, probably gonna be here from EPA, and that might guide us a little bit. That's not to say that these other ones aren't important, but those are the ones in my mind that, like, we have to start
Yeah.
crystallizing a little bit.
Yeah, and I think from the fire department standpoint, I mean, we have done some improvements there. I mean, we redid all the sleeping quarters, and we've done some things there. There's some things that still need to be done to make that a better facility. I mean, they have their turnout gear, which is in the same area as all of their trucks and the exhaust, but then we now have exhaust systems. We were able to get funding to get exhaust systems, so none of the exhaust, when they turn it on, just pumps into the garage. So there's different things that we have done. I mean, ultimately, I think in a perfect world, we'd all love to have a brand new state-of-the-art fire station 1. You know, I mean, you know, but you know, I think the chief understands that, you know, that's a difficult task to do right now. So we do slot projects each year. You know, we sit down with service department and we say, okay, here's everything that's lined up for the year for your winter projects, and try to take care of those. But
Yeah, but to your point about the capital not being able to push off at some point, I do think we're there on a lot of things. We pushed off even before the pandemic to try to close our gap, and then during the pandemic, you know, we discussed last year about the road program. We just couldn't, that is not a place that we can go to anymore, because we had gotten to like a 45-year life cycle. We had to bring that back down. I think our goal right now is 25-year, and we're getting back to that. But so that's one of those places that we used to be able to kind of dip into and say, oh, you know, the roads are looking pretty good, we can hold off there. I don't know that we have that option anymore.
Anybody else? Anything else?
What's the 2025 soccer fields? What fields and what are they doing?
So that, I had to go off of I didn't have a 5-year plan from Parks and Rec from last year, so I had to go off of the year before. So that would be under Derek. So let me see if I can find that sheet. I think it was to put in an additional soccer field, and I'm not sure if that's.
So we had talked about, we own all the land that's north of the dog park. And that was an area that was potentially slotted for a soccer field. I don't know if we would go more south from Liberty Park into that area. There was always plans to do the ball field, which we just did. But those are the general areas for soccer, that we could fit a soccer field, I mean, right now, so.
Yeah, it was new soccer field design and construction.
Yeah.
But that was, like I said, that's 2
Maybe
years
the
old,
school would
but I
do
still
that.
have it on my 5-year listing. It's just out a little farther. So Jen might have, different ideas when she talks to the mayor about what the long-term plans are there.
One of the proposals of the schools was when they redo Dodge, to take some of that land and have more public, make some public fields there. I'm sure some will be used for school purposes, but, I think that was part of the conversation with the city.
The challenge,
They're already used for soccer.
the challenge for more fields is that then you gotta maintain them forever. And you gotta water them, which is an expense, so, it'd be nice if someday one of our partners would build one. The township's got lots of land. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did talk to the township at one
Right, I
point.
know.
Yeah, they do have a big open space. They just don't have any parking there. But, yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the 5-year capital plan? Okay. Comments or questions in general? Anybody? No? All right. Miscellaneous. All right, so the next meeting of the Finance Committee will be on March 22nd, 2022. Sarah, do you have an idea of what time that should start?
I think we'll be fine at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
Sorry
Okay.
for bringing you
No,
guys in
that's
early.
okay. So we'll do it at
45.
All right, so we'll do it at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. With that, we will adjourn the Finance Committee meeting at 6:32 p.m.